Oh! Did you grab a mic? Here.
Guys, those for you that have watched this for the first time this evening, brief thoughts.
Let me see the hands of those still here who saw this for the first time.
Oh no, I saw. Sorry.
Woo, all right.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Was it what you expected?
Who hated it, and you can be honest? Lauren, of course. Yeah.
Boo.
It's tough. Yeah, no. I mean, to give you a little precursor for this, it's like we were talking. It's apples and oranges, but we were talking about Greg Araki's film that took place a couple of times. Then he made a few films after this called Mysterious Skin, which I think is my favorite movie.
Yes.
And that's what she just watched last night. That was her
so
first
she just
great
watched
movie.
it. So when you watch that, it's tough to
JGL.
But, yeah. Well, for those of you who know the Totally Fucked Up and know where the other films in the Teenage Trilogy, we'll be releasing all 3 later this year.
It's going to be a very solid box set.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the box set. Nowhere's Greg is working now on Nowhere with a 4K restoration, 12 deleted scenes.
Whoa.
So we'll have more than deleted stuff than Doom Generation had, which we're very excited to bring to you. But we're very excited to also bring the entire trilogy to you. Now, for those that are fans of Greg as a filmmaker, or independent film in general, what I'm excited about, and this is just me selling, sorry Greg, but I'm going to promote you because I love you.
We love him
We
too.
love, yeah. Then you will love this, because I tell you, Danny, his very first movie that he ever made, called Three Bewildered People in the Night, is coming out.
Nice.
Yes, and so he made 2 movies before The Living End. One called Three Bewildered People in the Night, and one called The Long Weekend. Oh, despair. Oh, despair. And those...
That sounds Shakespearean.
and it is, it's very, it's very Shakespearean in the sense that you see, when you watch Totally Fucked Up, which is 6 characters as the leads, like The Long Weekend, or you watch Doom Generation, which is 3 characters, like Three Bewildered People. They're not the same movies, but you can see that he's treading similar territory. So you're going to get a deep dive into these sort of subcultures and community in a way that we haven't seen because we've only been watching Doom Generation and Nowhere, and we haven't seen his earlier works. So for those of you, I think you have a really big treat in store in front of you.
So go ahead and tell us, because you were just telling us out there, how you first met Greg, because it's kind of a cool it itself.
It was a really cool story. I was coming out to Hollywood, at the time in my teens. I was still working at Arby's. I was like the fry guy. And I would take my bi-monthly checks and go to Hollywood and just spend like $200 on records. It was every 2 weeks. All my money on music. And as I started to come into Hollywood, 17 and then turn 18, I found this place that was unlike where I grew up, where I could listen to the music I listened to, and I wasn't really all that different than people, where I dressed the way I dressed, and everything that I liked that was antithesis of the community that I lived in, all of a sudden was kind of embraced in Hollywood. And so I found this place that for me at the first time, from my teens to turning 18, I kind of felt like maybe for the first time in my life I belonged. So I'm hanging out in this cafe. I made really good friends with the guys that worked there. I was poor, I was loitering around, get free coffee and biscotti and sandwiches, like why wouldn't I return? And I always used to see this other guy in there who was always doing his homework, and I thought, wow, this place is so cool. You have a guy like me who's lost, trying to figure out what to do with his life, loitering, and then you have a guy over there who's definitely sure what he's doing, because he's been working on his homework for like the past 6 months. And one day I just took pictures or something with one of the guys that worked there. He wanted to be a photographer. And so we took some headshots together. And the kid who saw me doing the headshots came over to me one time. So I was like, oh, all right, we're gonna meet. I'm gonna make a friend here, all right, I'm gonna make a connection. And it was Greg Araki. I didn't know who that was at the time, but he just came up to me and goes, you don't mind if I ask you a question? Are you an actor? Because I'm an independent filmmaker. I make these no-budget queer movies. I don't know, are you okay with that? It's okay if you're not.
Definite green light, right?
Yeah, because this was 1991, so people didn't normally say these kinds of things. And he's like, I just, you have such an interesting look, and I want a different look than what Hollywood has. You just seem to capture this essence of something I'm looking for.
Let's face it, James, you're beautiful.
I might have made a promise that if we raise enough money, you'd take off your shirt, but I was just talking.
Honestly, actually, we did raise enough money for him to take off his shirt.
Woo!
Stop it.
Jimmy's going wild.
Yeah, let's not make him let's not make our guests feel uncomfortable.
Okay, so it was pretty great. So he sent me the script, and I received it, and it ended up being this totally fucked up. I don't know if anyone saw Totally Fucked Up.
We have.
And when I read that script, that's the day my life changed. It changed when I met Greg, but it really changed when I read that script, because I read something that I had identified with in a way that I had never identified with anything in my life. From a stranger that I met in a cafe, in a town that I wasn't from, that offered all these possibilities, but I really didn't know what it was about. And that was the beginning, of this kind of really beautiful friendship, I remember, and working relationship. Because I went into audition for Greg for that movie, and when I went in, they're like, okay, you're Steven, which is not the character I ended up playing in the movie. And when I read the script, I had an affinity for the character of Andy, the character I ended up playing. And we did the audition, and then at the end of the audition, I went home, and then Andrea, Greg at the time, his producer, was an old student of his, and she produced all of Greg's movies, the entire teenage trilogy. And she called me up and said, well, you were great, we want you for the movie, Steven was great, but Greg and I were talking, and we actually think that you might be better for the character of Andy, if you wouldn't mind checking him out. And so then I thought, well, because I wasn't going to ask to play a different character, I was going to take what I was given. So when they thought it would be better for me to play something that I had already in my heart felt that I connected with, but wasn't going to say anything, that's when I felt like, okay, this is really fate stepping in, telling me I have to, I have to do this. And I'd only done theater and auditioned a little bit, but the entire making of that film, we shot on 16 millimeter, it wasn't a studio film, we shot on weekends, sometimes we'd shoot a whole day and then get chased out and then couldn't use any of it, and had to go back and reshoot it.
Super guerrilla style filmmaking.
True guerrilla style filmmaking. And there was a freedom in that independent filmmaking, in the sense that we weren't guided by the idea that we had to have certain type of content to get the movie out to be seen. And that wasn't what it was at all. In fact, it was something that I'll never forget that Greg did that was so genius. So we were still giving grants at the time for scripts. We don't do that anymore. So the National Endowment of the Arts, the J. Paul Getty Museum, they were giving grants for people to make films until we had a lovely president who got rid of that art project. And Greg turned in a script called Totally Screwed Up, got the $10,000 grant, put it away, pulled out the real Totally Fucked Up script, and that's what we shot. And that's, to give you an idea, that's like the first introductory into the world of Greg Araki.
He is just such... What was it like to be on this entire journey with him? Because you've been on a couple of projects with him.
It was, well, he's very secretive about stuff. He's still that way. He's like you were making Star Wars with him or something. But he's very, very secretive. So I know that when we were doing Totally Fucked Up, we were still doing the auditions for Totally Fucked Up, and I remember Marcus from Strand was running the front desk to help Greg out. And I remember I was coming up, so I just done the first audition. It was my second time coming in. I'm Andy reading with the other actors. And I walked up and Marcus looks at me and he's like, oh yeah, that Doom Generation's gonna be after this. This is like Greg's big movie. He's got full crew, $750,000. I'm like, whoa, hey Greg, can I be in that movie too? He's like, well, let's make the first one first. Let's make the first one first. And we probably spent like I said, 6 months making the movie, and then at the time there was no digital editing. So they have a thing called a moviola, which is this big, kind of mechanical device that's huge, and you take the film reels, the negative film reels, and you have to do it in the dark in the closet, and you put it through there, and you literally have to clip it. There's no digital editing at all. So it's a very, very tedious process. And I would come to his house, and he lived in a single where he would wash his dishes out of the bathtub because there was no kitchen. And then he had his,
I've been that poor.
yeah, he had his bed on a stand that sat about this high, this long, and then he had all his clothes hanging around the center of it. And then the entire walls, from the ceiling, from the floor to the ceiling, 4 walls filled with record crates. I've just never seen so many records in the 90s. Now he's got even, 10 times as much. But that was my first experience of working with Greg and seeing that his entire life in his home was
Music and movies.
was music
and
and
photography.
film. And photography, and that's all that it was, just that. And then when we were going to New York in 90, so a couple years had passed. It was a slow process at first. So we shot in 91, and it wasn't until 93 in New York. Like, okay, the movie's done. Because we finished doing Totally Fucked Up, then he had to go finish editing The Living End. Because it's a moviola, clipping it, that took him about another 6 months. Then that came out in 92, and then he could go back and edit our movie, which took another year. So then 93 it comes out, and at the point, I hadn't seen it, so I wasn't necessarily calling myself an actor. I was saying, I'm not an actor. I've acted in a movie. I'm in a movie. We'll see if I become an actor. I don't, I could be horrible in this movie. And I went to New York, and I watched the movie, and honestly, I couldn't have been more proud. I just couldn't believe that I was part of something so beautiful, something so special. And it was there that, while I was there, it was sort of, oh, Greg's, Jimmy's going to be the star of Greg's next movie. And I was sort of like, wait, what?
Wait, I'm known as Jimmy now?
Yeah. And I was like, he's going to be and introducing me like that backstage. And I was like, I haven't met anybody, I was still so young and impressionable. And I was like, oh yeah, I know, I think I heard about that Doom generation. No. Well, you're going to do Doom 2. You're going to do Doom 2, but it's a movie called Nowhere. So before I even shot Doom, I knew about Nowhere. And it was sort of like, I guess what it was.
Can I be let in on all of this?
Yeah, and so it turns out that, Greg was so had such a magical experience with all of us young kids making Totally Fucked Up, that experience is what inspired Doom Generation and Nowhere. And basically, it's not just the Teenage Trilogy, but for fans of Greg, if you've been watching his films past, Mysterious Skin and Smiley Face, then you know about Kaboom.
Yes.
And you know about Now Apocalypse. And they're very much, and if you don't know about those, you gotta watch them if you like this movie. Because they're very much in the vein of this movie, but even in another step up. If you can believe this, crazier. Dead serious, it's a little...
Now Apocalypse was on Stars.
On Stars.
So, what, like 2 years ago?
Like 2019?
I was poor and I could not have Stars. And I was not available to watch.
Yeah, a lot of people, it actually went under the radar. So, they gave us a big push. So what had happened was someone had got fired, as they always do, leading stars, and then the new guy got hired. They're like, we need to revamp this. We need like a more youthful audience. We need, a little bit more alternative. And then, the new guy's like, of course, what you need is you need a Gregoraki series. And this guy made it possible to make 10 episodes of this series that we're all very proud of. In all honesty, when he sent me the scripts, which I hadn't laughed that hard in 10 years since I read Kaboom, I also couldn't think to myself, I can't believe he's getting away with this. I can't believe he's getting away showing this. I can't believe I can't believe he got this much money to make this. Because it's that crazy. And we made it, and it's nuts, and they were really happy with it, and then the guy got fired. And our second season's now somewhere in limbo. But it's not quite dead. I just spoke to Greg, a couple days ago, so that's still in the fire, trying to get it going, the second season of that. And so, for fans of the Teenage Trilogy, or Teen Apocalypse Trilogy is now referred to, or Doom, or Nowhere, Greg's work in general, I highly, highly recommend Now Apocalypse.
Yes.
Going back to Doom Generation and such, Tell us a little bit about how you guys kind of influenced his writing. You guys being young and angry and being of a generation that was going through things, and how that reflected on his work.
He's so inspired by, you know, and I can see why now. I'm just going to date myself saying I'm a little older, but I can see why, because there's this fearlessness when you're young. It's like you're almost like you're invincible, and you're willing to try and do anything against these insurmountable odds. And my recollection, you know, especially with the other actors, is we were all just kind of balls to the wall, gung ho. There was nothing that we felt that we weren't afraid to do, to try, to express. There was nothing we wouldn't do. And I think that is where Greg thought, maybe there's something more, maybe there is something more to the youth than I thought, because his other characters, they're still young, but they're not teens. In Three Bewildered People, and Long Weekend of Despair, in The Living End, they're a little bit older. And then when we start to go through the Teen Angst trilogy, they become young again. And that's also mixed into the idea, which we, you know, for those of you of that age or that were just that age, it's like you fall in love and you want to die and you want to be reborn and you want to go out and take over the world, and then you want to go home and hide all in the same day. And so you go through all these things on a daily basis, and so you kind of, you know, you can hopefully over time sort that emotional, you know, core, which I'm still working on.
I think a lot of us are.
I still go through all those things on a daily basis. I don't know.
But, you know, and I thought that was kind of, you know, that was kind of inspiring to see someone who's like so in love in 1 minute, and then 10 minutes later not remember how in love they are because they're so angry at something else. And then the same token, 10 minutes later, they're so inspired that have moved on and left all of that behind. It was the idea that you could live all of these very intense emotions all at one time. Was what he found so inspirational. And that we were just kind of crazy, that we were just, not crazy, but we were so open to everything. And that's what he found to be the most inspirational. Then he could write stories.
Does anyone have a question for James? Start over here, corner.
Hi. Oh, I
Hello.
accidentally pressed the button. Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Chloe.
meet you. Hi, Chloe.
I was wondering, I mean, of course, music is such an incredible part of all of his movies. How much was like music a part of character building or like time on set in influencing your guys' actions and choices?
That's a great question. We were speaking about that a little earlier. Greg and I were probably more influenced, even still today, more by music than we are by movies. When I met Greg, that's a thing that we had in common then, that we still have in common, is our love for music, and a very similar, if not exactly the same tastes in music. So when I first got the movie with Greg, he gave us each character a mixtape, and he would make mixtapes for us. And this is your character, and this is your character, and this is your character, and this is what you listen to, and this is what you're feeling, and this is what you listen to, this is what you're feeling. And through that, especially because we're all music we love, we found it very, very easy to identify with these characters, because, you know, if someone gives you your favorite band and your favorite songs and then tells you to kind of go off from a jumping point from there, it's kind of, I can't think of an easier place to start from. And so Doom Generation and the music in general was always something, and still something more important to us than even the influence of films. So I know when we finished Doom, and then we did a little film short that still no one has seen called There Is No Time for Dreaming, in between Doom and Nowhere. And while we were doing that, he gave us a little film kind of education too, with Jim Jarmusch's independent films, Stranger Than Paradise, Mystery Train, and then he again made us slow dive cassettes, like, all right, this movie is specifically slow dive. Okay, so this is what all of your characters are listening to. But the music was central core, not just to the film, but I think to the emotions of the characters. They play such a large part of the film that when even Greg and I were speaking in Sundance just a few months ago, he asked me, he's like, so you get a lot of people and they're so inspired by film, and I'm so blown away by people that are inspired by film, because I can't think of a single movie that inspires me the way music does. And that's literally what Greg said. And it was like, that's literally the thing, again, that we have in common. You know, you take it even like, I know someone the other, like I was at a show a couple weeks ago, and they're like, so what do you listen to right now? I'm like, the new Love and Rockets, because it's amazing. Can't stop listening to it. So they just released, they had this album called Sweet FA, you know, which means fuck all. So Sweet FA back in the 90s. And they had just recently gone on tour. They just wrapped their tour up. And they released something called My Dark Twin. And My Dark Twin is another album's worth of material that was never released at the time. That the company told them it was too dark. We as fans wouldn't like it. We wouldn't get it. We wouldn't understand it. 25 years later, 30 years, they just released it. Some of their best stuff ever. And now it's thank you for holding up, because it's like a new album, except it's two of them.
And it's exactly what we just watched tonight, is something that was put out in 1995 that was extremely frowned upon.
Brought back with a whole new light.
Yeah, and now we have this beautiful 4K restoration, and now we have a reason to tell, you know, future little homos that it's okay. It's okay.
And we have
it's okay.
And we have many more stories for you too. Like, don't go anywhere, because stay tuned, because we've got loads for you.
I was like, it's okay.
It's okay. It's good. Things are good here.
Donovan.
Yeah, I just want to know, what was it like working with
Jonathan and Rose were amazing. Jonathan and I, we just clicked from the moment he walked into the audition. So I know the moment that Jonathan came to the audition, we kind of like looked at each other. We just had a connection right away. He wasn't, and we loved him, and Greg loved him right off the bat. And I know because
he's beautiful. How can you not love
he's beautiful.
him?
He also had this other thing. It's like, which you don't really want to do anymore. It's not totally appropriate, but it was fine at the time. But it was like, all right, you were really great. You know, give him a script was one sign that we were interested in the actor. When Greg goes, give him a script. So I remember the casting director goes, well, you haven't said to give anyone a script. The other thing is Greg goes, can you take your shirt off? Jonathan just goes, bam, and we're like, yep, that's it. That works.
That's great. It works for us too.
That works, yeah. And after the audition, Jonathan and I actually started hanging out. So we started hanging out before he was cast, because we just clicked so well. At the time, Jordan Ladd was cast as Amy, who ends up in Noah.
Oh.
And she was cast as Amy. And we had finished casting, I think, around November '93, December '93. And we go away for the holidays. We're getting ready to shoot the first week of January. And Greg goes home and he gets a call on Christmas Day from Cheryl Ladd. There's Charlie's Angels, Cheryl Ladd, Jordan's Ladd stuff. Greg, it's his mom. Greg, you have a call here from Cheryl Ladd. Wait, what? On Christmas Day? Yeah. So he goes over and takes a call from Cheryl Ladd, who's born again at that time. Oh, yeah. And she gets on the phone. She's like, it's like, hey, Merry Christmas. How you doing? She's like, there's no fucking way my daughter's doing your movie. No way. She's out. You're sick. Your script is sick. Your material is sick. You're sick.
I'm on the right path.
Yes. And so Greg goes, well, you know, all right, I'm just telling you, you know, when my new actress is on the cover of Interview magazine, you'll be sorry. And he did say that and got off the phone with her. Then Arlene, who called me Jimmy about the Nowhere thing, she had seen Rose at her gym and was like, you need to see this actress. So she calls in Rose to John, and at this point, Jonathan had already been cast. So Rose comes in to meet Jonathan and I, and that's when she kind of walked in. Then it was a similar thing again of like, uh-oh, I think we're in trouble, because that's Amy. Like right off the bat, that's Amy. I mean, Rose just has that fire, you know, that spark.
Yeah.
She had it then too, like, that's just partly her, that's just who she was. So we were having trouble recasting the part, and when Rose came in, she fixed that right away. So we were very lucky with Jonathan, and we were very, very lucky to get Rose at the last minute. We ended up only pushing 2 weeks before the shoot. And if anything, I think at first Rose might have felt a little bit off because she had come in at the 11th hour, and we all knew each other now for months, and I'd known Jonathan for quite a few months. But again, after a few days of shooting, it's just kind of like we just settled into our place. And the second day of shooting, the Northridge quake hit, the Los Angeles quake. So parts of the freeway fell, the entire city shut down. So then it really became the Doom generation while filming the Doom generation. And it was nerve-wracking. It was a nerve-wracking shoot, in all honesty. It was a very, very tough shoot. It was cold. It was in the middle of the winter. Everything was wrecked. The city was,
yeah, like literally in the middle of the desert too.
yeah, so there'd be times so we had to go. We couldn't film because of the earthquake. Everything was laid waste. So we had to do the road trip stuff, all the stuff in the cars. So we'd be driving in the canyons, and then we're in a car hitch. So in this sort of car hitch, because that car that we were using so large, you couldn't open the doors. So they had to jerry-rig the window, hot wire the windows to get them to go down, and Jonathan, Rose, and I would sneak in the windows, and then for sound, they had to hot wire the windows up. So you're locked in this car that you can't open the door to get out, being towed by a big truck. And you're going through these valleys, shooting these talking scenes, then all of a sudden an earthquake aftershock hits. And you see dust and rocks start coming down, and they stop the car. Guys, you gonna let us out? Because the rest of you can run away. I don't know about you. We're trapped. You're stuck? So they would go off, and oh yeah, they have to come over and hot wire us. Like, you know, if this is an emergency, I don't have faith in you. So it did add this sense of we felt like we were in danger almost all the time, and that really helped, a lot for I think for the film ultimately. But it was a challenging shoot, and thankfully, if we weren't, I think, as close as we were, I don't know if we would have made it through it. Wildly enough. I remember Greg with a bullhorn, screaming at everybody. And yeah, I think everyone was on edge, because after this major earthquake, you have to leave your partners, you have to leave your family, you have to leave and everyone's wondering why you're not there 6 days a week after this major earthquake that laid this city out. So we were all in the middle of personal problems with our other halves at the time. If anything, I can say now, I saw Jonathan at Sundance. I haven't seen Rose in a couple of years, but the last time I saw Rose, it was a really, really sweet experience, because it had been a while before that too. So and I know Jonathan and Rose are in touch, so there's still somewhat of communication between us, but I know Rose is also fed up with the business. She's fed up with a lot of the politics in this country. Yeah, so she's not, she avoids it as much as possible, which I don't blame her. And Jonathan's just been working on a new TV series, so if he wasn't on that TV series, he would have been more on the TV.
Yeah, it's like Blue Ridge TV, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And if he wasn't on that, he might have been even possibly here tonight, because Jonathan's a big supporter, and I mean, he's X. Xavier. It's okay if I say X? I can't really pronounce all that.
Randy?
So, as someone that has a fascination with small details in the filmmaking process, the 2 scenes of you using the yo-yo,
yeah,
is that something that you knew how to do, or was there like a long process to learn it to get to those 2 scenes?
That's an interesting question. I'm not particularly a yo-yo expert. Like, I couldn't do the walk the cradle thing, but I did get a chance to mess around with that yo-yo for a day or two. So by the time I was adequate enough to be able to get it to go up and down. And I don't think you catch it, but I did get in trouble, because as I was practicing with the yo-yo, I had 3 of them. So I'm learning to use the yo-yo, like you were saying, and as you're learning to use it, you make mistakes. And one of my mistakes was too close to the ground, and the whole thing exploded. All right, Jimmy, we have 2 left. You pull out the second one, and it's green and yellow. It's not red and blue. So there's only 1 left. And I remember at that point, it was just more of like, don't piss Greg off, don't piss Greg off. Jimmy, we only have 1 left. We only have 1 left. Don't fuck it up. So it was really kind of like... And it was funny, because another screening, one of the fans just brought me it's not the exact one I used, but it's the exact type in the box.
Well, that's super cool, because my brother asked me the same thing.
So
He's like, hey, did you bring a yo-yo for James?
Well, if anything, I'm really, now that we're talking about it, I'm really upset because I had forgotten it, because I wanted to walk out tonight with it. But maybe it's good, because then I might have broken it again. Yeah.
Like, I feel like seeing Greg's films, like, helped me place myself, you know, as a 17, whatever. And I think that's fucking great. Like, this is excellent.
For us, it's the biggest compliment. To be quite honest, we had someone else, you know, because the whole idea of like the heterosexual film was like the gayest heterosexual film you're ever going to watch. And he made The Living End, and when he made The Living End, you know, which is this gay road action, I mean, it's a fucking amazing movie. But you know, for the straight audiences and for straight producers, especially at that time, they were like, well, you know, you make these really great like action movies for, you know, the gay audience. You know, if you can make one for a straight audience, I'll give you money. So Greg goes, I got something for you. I'll make the gayest straight movie you ever saw. And that's literally how how it came up, was the opportunity to do something like that. And you know, again, kind of, I think for us, like to hear you say that, we heard someone come up to us, which is a big compliment. He's like, you know, it wasn't until I watched Doom Generation that made me gay. And we're like, that's kind of the point. It's not that it made you gay, it just made you honest about what you were attracted to. It's okay. And that's why
It wasn't that it made you gay, it was the fact that it let you
opened the
see
doors. Yes.
that there's like other people out there like you, and you don't need to feel ashamed. And I think that is probably the most important.
It's a pathway, a doorway to a world where you can be who you are, and you can be honest about it, and you can put it out there, and you don't have to feel ashamed about it. You shouldn't have to feel afraid about it. Something else we were talking about earlier as well. You know, we're living in a day, and a world, and a time, and a place where, because other people are afraid, they want us to be afraid too. But we don't have to be, and that's not what we're gonna do.
That's kind of what I was gonna ask, is like, there's the good side of it being relevant again, but then there's also the, like, damn, it's like 25 years later.
That's like 25, well, that's what we're thinking. We're thinking we made this, and we have made some really progressed in steps beyond what we thought we would see in our lifetimes. So to watch it go back in just the course of a few years is quite frightening. People, you know, and I know they're like, oh, whoa, wake up, because we need to figure this out, because we're not getting along.
Yeah, we're not getting along, and we all like share this space with each other. We all breathe the same air, and it's about time that we all kind of figure out how to share this space with each other in a really viable, meaningful, constructive
yeah,
way.
And
I don't care. I don't care if you care that I'm gay. Fuck it. It doesn't matter, man. And I don't care if you're fucking straight. I don't care if you're a fucking breeder and you have fucking 10 fucking kids and you are like just absolutely running amok on taxes, but it doesn't fucking matter. We have to share this world together. We have to breathe the same space. Yeah,
we're not asking other people to change their lives. We're just asking for our right to be different, and that's it. You can be who you are. You can be who you are, and that's it. You live in a country where you don't have to accept or like what we do, but you should respect it. And that's the most important part. Okay, enough of the.
Hey, homeboy up yonder, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, hey. So, I'm a big fan of seeing these movies for the first time in the way they're meant to be seen, I guess.
Oh, we're so well welcome.
When I
I'm
first
so
saw
happy.
it on VHS, and of course the full-frame DVD and other. I've never seen the director's cut, the full version before, so it was pretty awesome to see it in its aspect ratio, on the big screen, with everything that was cut out, because it was a totally different movie than what was released, at least wide, right? So,
yeah.
Just a quick two-part question. As an actor, what is your knowledge or involvement with the cuts that were made, and what was your opinion on that? Did you have any influence or voice in that? And then the other one, I know that they did the 4K restoration on this. Do you know if they're going to release it on a 4K disc? 'Cause a lot of times they put it in a standard 1080 disc instead.
That's true.
This looks amazing. I would like to see it the same way at home, like in the 4K disc when they release it.
There's going to be a physical Blu-ray disc of this coming out, and a 2K. It should be a 4K as well.
Awesome.
Greg's working on the Nowhere right now, and then we hope to have the whole box set of all three before the end of the year or early next year. What was the first part of the question again?
Your involvement or opinions about when the cuts were made, because this is a totally different movie than what was released wide to everybody. To me, it feels
Okay,
totally different.
well, Greg had reached out, so I did add one voice in there. So I added the all hail the coffee and cigarette guy. Because it just, in the old mix it was muffled, it was kind of like buried in the mix.
What I meant was like, when it was released, obviously I don't think it was Greg's wanted it cut 13 minutes of a short movie cut out when it was released, an R-rated version?
That was, so if
So
you
how
saw that
involved were
cut,
you? Like, what was your opinion on the original cuts, and were you involved in those discussions?
no, okay, so the cuts you're talking about, and this is interesting because Greg and I have spoken about this at length. When we had released the movie at Sundance, it did have some of the stuff that's in this cut, but for us to release it, the studio said you need to get rid of some of that stuff. There's no way, like that is unreleasable. And excuse me, to that point, we were still an NC-17 movie. We're not going to get a rated R rating.
Yeah.
So what happened was, the studios, especially in the 90s, need to have a rated R cut, the blockbuster cut or whatever. So they go and they give the cut to the MPAA, who honestly, and Greg and I take glee in this, to be quite honest, they found that they hated our movie. That they found that the entire tone of the movie offensive.
You mean you're doing something right.
Yes, they couldn't tell us how to make a rated R movie because they found the entire movie to them to be offensive. So what they did is they just set someone in there to make cuts. So the movie's about 82 minutes. And I think you saw this. If you saw it on VHS, and the cut you're talking about is about 60 minutes or 55. So they cut 20 to 25 minutes out. Let me tell you, Greg is not happy about that. He was furious. Furious. He's still furious about it. I mean, he has an anger when it comes to this that I understand, that it's so offensive for someone to take your work, and even if they don't understand it, and to make something completely different out of it. So to say you're offended and you don't like the content, you don't like the sex, so to give you an example of one of the things they cut, was there's the whole thing, you know, where Amy and I are in the black and white room and she's talking about, like, she just was with X and she's teaching me, you know, how to be more sexual. She said, you know, take it out, look at it, hit me in the leg with it, you know, whatever. and she's talking about that stuff, and they didn't like any of it, so they cut all 3 pages of dialogue out, and it just cuts to us having sex there and then cuts away. It's like you're offended by the sex, but then everything that kind of sets it up, that's kind of endearing about relationships and people connecting, you cut it out. And it's, I mean, it has to be said that they just don't really kind of understand independent film, I think, in general, not even necessarily ours, but just independent film in general. And it's something that we knew was going to happen, we just didn't think it was going to happen that extreme. Fortunately, it's not something we've had to deal with since. But I think for us to have the movie come out, to be seen by all of you like this on the big screen, restored with all the, you know, no pun intended, cut stuff put back in, really to us is kind of a, you know, it's a victory lap in a lot of ways. And because you're all still here, interested in watching the movie and being a part of the trilogy. And that's not, you know, when we, like I was saying earlier, when we made these, for us, it was very much just a reflection of how we felt and where we were at the time. And so it's incredible to come back and see how poignant the movie still plays and how it still means something to you guys, because it still means, and to us, that we didn't know how much it still meant to us.
Speaking of people who didn't understand it, could you tell the story on the set of Independence Day when it came out that Roger Ebert gave it 0 stars, and your director on Independence Day's reaction?
Yeah, well, you know, that was kind of, so the story of how I got Independence Day tied into that was, I was working in a restaurant at the time as a waiter, and I remember I was working in some French restaurant, and I'll give you guys a little bit of the lowdown. So the owner, who I loved, Jackie, was this like really kind of eccentric French woman. You know, it was kind of in the rich kind of area of Hollywood. So she'd be like, Jimmy, there are these very big American directors coming to the table. I need you to touch their table and treat them well. I'm like, Jackie, look, I'm not here to smooth with you customers, all right? I'm not a good waiter, but I'm here to do the best I can with what I got. So they come over to the table. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Let me tell you about the specials. And I had a poster totally fucked up on the door, but I just didn't think anyone would think anything of it. And the director, at the time it was just Stargate, and he just goes, totally fucked up. Is that you? Did you do that movie? And I'm like, well, yeah, but how do you know about that? Because it hadn't come out. And he's like, I saw that at the Sundance Film Festival. Are you still acting? I was like, well, yeah, can I take your order? And we started talking a little bit, and he's just so happens that I'm a huge fan of Greg Araki. I love The Living End. I love Totally Fucked Up. I'm always at Sundance. So what are you doing next? What do you have going on? And this was November '94, and I'm like, well, turns out I have another movie with Greg Araki called The Doom Generation, playing at Sundance next month. Maybe we'll see you there. So I didn't really think much of it, and show up to Sundance, and this movie plays, and I know at that time, people were walking out since the beginning. So by the time we got to the end, half the theater was gone. So we knew we were in for like a tough run. And I remember we were sitting at the top, and when they called us down for the Q&A, we all had to walk down. And as we were walking down, it was Roland Emmerich, who eventually did Independence Day, but director of Stargate, and Godzilla, and he's just sitting there, and he looks at me as I'm walking down, and he goes, oh my God, Jimmy, oh my God. I lost that job. On to the next one, it's fine. And it turns out that he loved The Doom Generation, asked me to come in and audition for his movie. The studios hated me, and he was like, nope, see that audition? He was great. That's all I need to see. He's all I want. Go away. He's it. And fought with the studios until him and Greg made the schedule work. So one part of the story I didn't tell is the studio fought so hard to get me in the movie, to not get me in the movie, because we were shooting at the same time that they go, well, there's a scheduling conflict. Well, they actually worked it out so I could shoot 1 week in LA with Greg, take out my earrings, switch my part, fly to Utah, shoot 1 week of Independence Day, fly back to LA, put my earrings back on, switch my part, shoot a week of nowhere, and they made that happen. And I can tell you, the one thing there's a giveaway for that is there's a moment in Nowhere when I'm in the bedroom, and all of a sudden I have a farmer's tan in one scene. And that's because of being in the desert for a week. Jimmy, you got a tan! But, so we finished that movie, now I'm just back on Independence Day. And at this point, Doom Generation finally got its theatrical release. And there was people were talking about it. It was in the trades. It was like, oh, it's got 0 stars. It's the most offensive movie ever. Roland Emmerich's running around like you, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman, Will Smith, and Roland's like, Doom Generation. Around the Independence Day set. I'm so happy the kid from Independence Day was in this movie. And for me, that kind of support to come from a filmmaker from big Hollywood movies like Roland to Greg to me, I think, was really that was a big validating moment for me and for Greg, I think. And Greg loved the idea that, this kid that he picked up, here he is running around like kid from Doom Generation is Independence Day. And we love that. It's the idea of being subversive about it, subverting what we're given. And in a lot of ways, maybe they forced that out of us. But we have a hell of a good time doing it, so.
What was that like, going from such a huge budget film to working honestly really low budget indie movies?
Yeah, it was two completely different worlds in the sense that one sandbox is as big as this building, and one sandbox is this room. But and there were things I've worked on big movies, but that movie, okay, it's lunch. They would probably have a grill as long as this front row of just lobster. And then have another one right in front of it, that long, filet mignon. Then they'd have another one, I've never seen so many vegetables in my life. And I've just never seen setups like this in my life. And I'm like, oh,
this is what movies are like.
Yeah, this is where all the fucking food is? Oh shit. I thought grocery stores were full. But yeah, it was mean, it was a mind-blowing experience because you go from something like that, and in a lot of ways I was really spoiled because everybody that was doing Independence Day was very cool and very happy to be a part of it. Everybody who was doing Nowhere was really cool and really happy to be a part of it. So that's the one thing that were similar, but that's where the similarities ended. Then all of a sudden it's your subject matter that changes. So there became a point, which we never did this, but I know that Roland, being a fan of Greg's, he wanted to get like some naked guy running, because I threw them out the Independence Day, I was like, Russell! Russell! He wanted to, like, because Bill, when they were shooting the White House stuff, he wanted to get like some grown naked man running around going, Russell! Russell! Just to get reactions from Bill Pullman and everybody like, and he never did it, and I'm still really disappointed that he didn't, because I offered to do it.
Do you wish you were that man?
Sometimes. There's something liberating about just going.
Just something being naked and running a free, right?
It's streaking, yeah, streaking.
Anyone else? Midge?
I'm just gonna simplify it. Basically, it's kind of a two-parter. What was your funnest scene during the Doom generation? Like, and also like throughout any other film that you filmed with Greg or Rocky, and then also what was the most difficult or the most not difficult or pain in the ass, but the most challenging or pain in the ass? And also, where did you study theater at? Did you like theater?
I loved theater. I originally had done, I started like junior high. They did some audition where they were doing some play, and I just, when I went into audition for the play, I just spoke louder than everybody and got it. That's how I got the part. But then once I got the part, I was like, wow, this is a lot of memorizing. So I actually just didn't go to school for like 2 weeks and stayed home. In like 8th grade, memorized everything, and they were about to drop me out of the play, and then I somehow showed up and just nailed it. And then after that, I was like, oh, I think I want to try to be an actor. And then I got to high school the next year, and they're like, oh, we don't let freshmen act. And I'm like, well, screw you.
That's fucked up.
That's what I said, like, fuck you actors, I hate actors. And I was like that for about 3 years. And then Marissa, one of the girls in my school, was like, oh, I got this job doing extra work. You want to do extra work? I'm like, yes. Okay, you need to get your dad to get you a work permit. I'm like, I couldn't get my dad to give me a sandwich. Somehow, I got my dad to get me a work permit for this stuff. And I went out, got a work permit, and started doing extra work. And that's what brought me to set.
Did you have to be 16?
Yeah, and I was 16 at the time. And so I ended up doing extra work a couple times. And it, you know, I liked what it was, but it was, you know, certainly like you're definitely starting at the bottom. And so I realized I needed to learn how to act. Like I have to go to a real acting class, acting school. So I found an acting school that I went to for about 3 months, auditioning or auditing it. You know, like, oh, I like this class. Oh, so you ready to join? Oh, well, let me try this class first. So I audited until they booted me out because they figured out I didn't have money. I was just taking these classes.
You're being smart. It's okay.
Yeah, and then I met Greg at that time and auditioned for him and got the part in his movie. So that a lot of that film experience was I just learned on the spot at the time while I was making Totally Fucked Up with him. And very similar to Doom Generation too. I remember still when I look back, there was, you know, the difference between doing a close-up and doing a wide shot or a medium shot. I wasn't really aware of that whole. So it was, I learned the acting aspect probably from theater, and then I learned the technical aspect of it when I started taking acting classes. That helped me with the technical. I'd taken classes on landing a mark, you know, for camera. And that stuff I found to be extremely helpful while I was, so I did them. I had that acting class, then I worked with Greg, and then I did a touring play for about 1.5 years. I got paid like $50 a show. And we would go to like different colleges or continuation schools for kids who were struggling with addiction, sexual abuse.
Oh, it's like our audience here.
Yeah, it's something called Stopgap Theater, which was, you know, it was a great experience, and it was great to work. Being, you know, I want to say kids, but I was the same age as them. But I learned quite a bit doing all that. And it's just kind of this continuation of moving on with Greg. I know that probably when we were doing Doom Generation, one of the funniest scenes, believe it or not, is the three-way. And it's because it was so, you have 30 people looking at you, so it doesn't get any more artificial than that. There's nothing sexy about doing, honestly, it's sexy. Like the tub stuff, oh God. That was just...
That looked really uncomfortable. I'm gonna be for real.
Yeah, well,
that looked super uncomfortable.
It was poor Rose, because that water's warm for about 5 minutes. It's not a real tub, so it just gets super cold. Then the paint inside of it started to peel off. So you have paint peeling off, don't want to show that. It's freezing, she's trying not to shiver. I'm having trouble walking in there without spreading my legs. He's like, Jimmy, can you not? I'm like, okay, how do I get into a tub?
Yeah. My sack showing.
Your balls are showing, and I'm like, Greg, what do you want? Like, everything I could. I'm sorry, I have to let it. It's got to be free will. So that was like that, and the three-way scene were, uncomfortable was quite funny. Because I know in the three-way scene it was like, because he's like, more thrusting, and it's all shot from here.
Like, fuck, this water is cold.
Yeah.
And this tub is very small.
Well, and then when Jonathan.
Rose is Rose.
Rose is Rose, and then Jonathan comes to the rescue. So this is Rose, and this is me, and this is off camera, and Jonathan reaches underneath off camera and goes, So all of a sudden I'm like, I started laughing because I can't,
How did you not laugh?
Yeah, he was pushing so hard it was literally making me go, And I know from the monitor I can just see me doing this. It's just, I'm sorry, Greg, this is funny. And I couldn't stop laughing during the three-way because he kept reaching under and just And so it was a lot of fun, but it was crazy and it was awkward. The toughest scene was easily the ending of Nowhere. The ending of Nowhere where Montgomery comes in and he pulls the thing and talks about the space alien. That took about 20 hours to shoot, 22 hours a day.
What? Are you serious?
It was a 22-hour day, and it was long. It was the last day of the shoot, so we'd already been shooting for 4 weeks.
Did y'all shoot in sequence for?
No, we shot in pieces, but that just happened. That last piece just happened to be the last scene, coincidentally, and the actors were tired, the crew was tired, Greg was tired. It was supposed to be 2 days, and we got into it, and we made great time. And after about 16 hours, they're like, well, we have about 4 or 5 hours left. You guys want to finish it now, or you want to come back tomorrow? We kind of all looked at each other. So let's finish it now.
Knock it out.
And that last 5 hours felt like 5 days. It was, and part of what made it tough is because that, when the character Montgomery explodes all over me, they had to have like the guts and the blood come up on me, and so all that stuff at that point is freezing cold and sticky, too. So when they kind of when he explodes, they fling all the guts on me. It was a mixture of like fake blood and like real guts from like chickens and stuff like that. So it was really nasty, and I had it all over me. It was just dripping, and then there was another 2 or 3 hours of that, and it gets to the point where if you do this, it's just all over your body. So then it hurt. So that became a very challenge. That last day was really challenging. I know the DP was trying to keep his eyes open. Greg was trying to keep his eyes open.
He was definitely earning his money that day.
Yeah. Nathan and I were trying to keep our eyes open. I was just trying not to stick. So what ends up happening every time it gets dry is they have to come spray you down. And it's freezing cold and it's just dried up. Then you have that for another 2-3 hours. And then the saving grace of that, because that I think was the toughest, probably the toughest. I just have never done, even since then, a 22-hour film day. That I was so covered in blood and guts, I had this little tub, and I know Greg has a picture of it somewhere, because at the time I was still a big smoker, but I was like, I got a 1/4 ounce of weed, and I bought a Phillies Titan, and I emptied it, and I stuck a 1/4 ounce of weed in it, and I passed it around the entire crew while I sat naked inside a blue bucket of water washing all the fake blood. And I know because I saw Greg has a picture of me with this big thing like. Right before I pass it to Arturo, the DP, to Greg, I pass it to everybody. I'm gonna call them all out. I made them all smoke. So there was a bit of a reward at the end of that. Sorry it's so long-winded, but that was probably the toughest. That 22 days.
And you know what it was like to be the 10 man after that. You know, get your oil every few minutes. Danny, you got a last question? This is kind of your day, in my opinion. This is, you know.
Our day, man.
I know, but you work so hard for this, and it was a success. We raised a lot of money. Those folks, they got this van that they take those kids around, and we raised enough money that they can fix that van.
Yes.
So.
I went out to go give the fat envelope of cash to Chuck and Jenny. I felt like a godfather. I was just like, there's $2,300 right there for you, fucking cash. And they were so appreciative. Like, guys, we apparently I didn't know this. Their van broke down. And it was like super fucked, and they needed it to be like taken care of. And apparently, everything that we raised tonight is taking care of that. Get all their appointments when school starts back up. I mean, just like everything. Like, guys, it's shit like this that makes us really thankful that we are a part of the local horror community. I cannot say thank you enough. James.
Thank you, James.
Before I go, Boo, can you do me a favor? Can you grab the buttons out of my thing in the end of the hallway? I want to do a little. I have some fuck kill buttons that I would like to do a little trivia with you guys. If you guys can come up with some answers, hand out some buttons. You can bring me the case, yeah. If you guys are up for it, anyone want to do some trivia?
Like, Greg gave you these himself, right?
These are from Greg. Yeah, these are from Greg. And so every show he likes to. If he was here himself, he would be doing it. But like I said, he does. In fact, you don't mind. Let's make him a little video. You guys want to say hi to Greg?
You should call him right now.
Call that motherfucker right now.
All right, let's call him. I'm serious, let's call him. I was just going to text him, but let's call him. All right, is it going to be, let's try this mobile. I want to FaceTime him though.
Guys, we seriously cannot thank you so much. He's calling bigger Rocky right now. Well, even if Greg does not answer, that's fine.
We can leave him a voicemail. Group voicemail.
This is
Greg.
It's okay, he can get it like this. Thank you. Greg Rocky, it's Jimmy Duval. How you doing, my friend? I am at a screening of Doom Generation tonight at the Majestic Theater in Phoenix. And I have a group of people here who want to say hello. Do you guys want to say hello to Greg Rocky? So much. Thank you for everything. None of us would be here if it wasn't for you.
It's goddamn right.
Yeah. Much love. Faces screaming for him. I don't need to do this, but you all do. Here, I need to get you all in here.
Get Danny in there. Yeah.
Come on, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank
All right,
you,
so
everyone. Thank
yeah,
you.
so our fun thing is we love to give away these buttons, and we love to tell these to do these little trivias for the buttons. So like one of our favorite things, we were talking about music earlier, and I'm assuming like you guys are fans of the soundtrack too.
Oh my God, yes.
So here's my buttons.
This is probably one of the best soundtracks to like any movie. I'm gonna say, obviously, The Crow is another one. Spawn.
The Crow is great, isn't it?
I'm sorry, the Spawn soundtrack.
Justice for Spawn.
Justice for Spawn.
They're not in here. Are they at the table? I think they're at the table.
It is a Justice for
Let's start
Spawn,
off.
though.
I did have a spare one.
And those are literally given to you by Greg.
He came to my house to give these to me specifically for the Majestic for tonight. Join me for the trivia questions. Have fun. No, seriously, I'll kick off the first one. Like one of Greg and I's favorite ones, because we're such fans of music, is there's 3 bands in the soundtrack who have 2 songs in the movie. What bands are they? That's one. We have 2 more.
Name another one.
That's another one. I got one for you. I'm sorry? No, I wish. That's one of them, but someone just said that one. There's just one. So there's one other band. The Verb? It has 2.
The Verb? The Verb?
No. It's kind of a tough one because Greg and I didn't realize, we forgot about the second song until this new cut. We're like, oh, that, you
Because
can
it
hear
got
it.
muffled, right?
Yeah, it was muffled.
You got it, Larry?
Is it Billy?
No.
Hornos Papyrus?
No.
Somebody up there in the left-hand corner had their hand up.
Slow Dive, someone said Slow Dive already. I wish it was Ride. I love Ride. Because Nowhere is, the name of Nowhere is from the Ride album. That's what Nowhere is named after. No, close though. Close.
God,
That's
I
it. You
love
said
me
BP
some roadkill
Manifesto.
stuff.
That was it.
Rose herself is here.
Also, James, what is something else that you would like to share with fans about this movie? We kind of spoke about it a little earlier, that you literally were just at a coffee house.
Yeah, just sitting in a coffee. Just sitting
Shooting
in a
the
coffee
shit
shop.
at a coffee house, and
My whole life changed when Greg asked if I was interested in acting. Everything. And yeah, that ice cream bar is somewhat still there. It's called something else now, but it's still there, although Greg and I don't go to it anymore, unfortunately. It was called the Double Rainbow Ice Cream Bar.
holy shit, how appropriate.
Yeah, there were only 2. There was a Double Rainbow on Melrose, and there was a Double Rainbow on Haight Street in San Francisco, and those were the only 2. And that place changed my life. The Double Rainbow changed my life. You'd come to Hollywood, before I met Greg, I'd be literally every day in front of the Double Rainbow. You'd come by to see the Double Rainbow, and I'd be there underneath the Double Rainbow.
Before Greg, like before you met him, if you could ever encounter another filmmaker, who would it be?
That's a good question. There's a lot of filmmakers I've loved over the years, and that I've thought about that in the past. But I honestly now, in the present, I couldn't. There's just nobody like Greg. There's just nobody like him. That when I started to think about this recently, and spoke to Greg about it, there's other again, like other filmmakers I've adored over the years. But when it comes down to the content, I don't think there's anyone that comes close to Greg for me. No, he's so singularly unique, and there's nothing forced. There's no bullshit that comes out of it. It's all organic and real. I mean, he's a reflection. His movie's a reflection of truth of who he was, and how he sees things. And it's very much for those of us who are along for the ride. It's exactly the same for us too. And it's like, if anything, for me as well, he's a guidepost. He's a signpost. He's been a guidepost for me my whole life. Since I was 18, I'm 50 now. So he's been a guidepost for me for the past 32 years. And I'm not ashamed to say he saved my life. He gave me direction, and he gave me meaning, and he gave me a place to feel not alone and not outcast and not disgusting. All the things that we do face, I think. And what's sad is everybody faces it, but some people have a better support group than others. Some people have a better, communities are kinder to them than others. So it's sort of, it's been a struggle. But I can say through Greg, and not just his work, but just knowing him as a person, he changed my life for the better in every single way.
How does it feel for you to know that being a part of this movie helped change a lot of our lives?
I couldn't ask for anything. That's when I really, then Greg becomes incomparable, because this is all I've wanted to do with my life, is not only to belong and felt like I belonged, but to let other people know that they belong too, and be a strong enough person that they would feel that when I extend my hand. And I think that's tough for all of us. We want to extend our hands to people we love, but sometimes when they're so hurting, it's like they can't take it from us. And this, I think, gives me the opportunity to do something I think I couldn't do on my own. And that means more to me than anything in the world.
That means a lot to us too. Thank you.
You all mean everything to me. I mean, I don't, I'm going to say this because it's kind of funny and weird, but that's what I kind of grew up with. There's this line in Star Wars that I was always influenced by when I was growing up. And everyone's going to make fun of me. And this is Jordan, by the way, because I used to tell this to Craig. And there's this line in Star Wars, it's like, your friend, I wonder if he cares about anyone or anything. And what does Luke say? I care. And I felt like I've always been that guy since I was a little kid. Like when someone's like, nobody says, no, I care. I won't even let you finish that question or statement without me telling you how much I fucking care. And he gave me an arena to really care and for people to care back. And the hope is just to continue.
It's the new hope.
Yeah. To continue to do what we're doing and to thrive. We'll have some more buttons before we get too serious, but one of my favorite sayings from my friend who's no longer with us, a dear friend of mine, but he would always end up everything with survive and thrive. And that's my motto.
It's a good motto.
Yeah, and it's my wish for all of you, not just to survive, because surviving is not living, but thriving is. So, really interesting. If you come up with some good questions, feel free. It can either be no, or these can be very rocky questions too. Just try and kind of keep it interesting, because sometimes the Dune questions you guys are really good at them.
Yeah, you guys are super good at those.
So I went to school for set design, and I love all of the sets in Nowhere and in this film. And I was wondering, like, if you had a hand in deciding how the rooms looked, or what were the thoughts behind each set, like you guys shot in.
I wasn't part of the decision-making process, but I know what the decision-making process was. The dearly beloved and deceased Therese Dupree, who was our production designer on Dune Generation, she's the one really responsible for everything you see from the shop pictures will be executed to the skull lighter to the dashboard with all the little weird kind of toys.
The little snake and the alligator head, and the pack of cigarettes.
So Greg, and it's funny because I was talking about this before, one of the films that influenced me when I was young at 17, my first independent movie, was something called The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. I love that movie. It's very dark, it's very twisted, it's very weird, but it's very beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. And so the Red Room in Dune Generation, Greg went to Therese Dupree and go, I want this to be like the Red Restaurant in Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. And I didn't know this till recently, because I was always taken by that Red Room, just like I was taken by that movie. So now, after all these years, knowing that, I definitely see that. But Greg was very, Greg had a specific idea of what he wanted, and Therese had this amazing ability to not only make it come to life, but to bring us something that was so much more than what even Greg had thought. Like when he goes, oh, what about, this white and black room?
Yeah,
So
oh man,
Therese does
I
this.
fucking love that.
Yeah, she painted those checkerboards. It was a blank wall. We left, finished shooting. We came back the next day, black and white wall, black and white tiles. She did all that overnight. The bar,
like with all the
aluminum
aluminum
foil,
foil, like
that was
all
on
over
one
it,
night.
like-
We saw her. She's like, oh, I'm gonna set up. Like, all right, we'll see you next day. We show up, and she made magic out of it. And it was really,
Wouldn't you have like a couple hours to shoot inside there?
yeah.
Right?
I think in that bar we shot out at like. Well, I think we probably had the night at that bar, but that was it. And I remember that we got to the end, and Parker, we were so happy to have Parker Posey with us. We were so jazzed to have Parker.
There's so many people that have like a bit part in this movie too. You could make a drinking game.
You
like-
really could, and it's like from the if we can make that, I'll make that another. So there's two people from Dazed and Confused in Doom Generation. Who are both of them? I said one of them. Anyone? Wait, hold on. Wait, give me a hand and then.
Nikki Cat.
That's one, and I guess I said Parker Posey. So he got a pin.
Yeah.
But there's more questions. So what I was gonna say also. Here you go. I will say, Greg would have been fun to be here, but one of the fun things about Greg is when he gives away a pen, he just goes, "You did it!" He just chucks them. All right, what was I just talking about?
Dazed and Confused.
We're all high.
Dazed and Confused.
Cameos, I guess. Talk about cameos.
Cameos.
All right.
Nowhere's got a lot of just great bit people in it too that are just there for 5 seconds and then they're gone.
Oh, it was the cameo. So the funny story about the Parker is we were so happy to have Parker. We were jazzed to have Parker. Parker was jazzed to be in the movie. So she shows up. We shoot all night till dawn. I rap out. Rose raps out. Jonathan raps out. Now, Parker had to fly herself in from New York. They didn't pay to fly her. This was an independent movie. It cost her more to fly in than we paid her, and she still did it. Then at the end of the night, she filmed until sunrise when the rest of us were gone. And then she has to have this scene where she's crying, and so Greg, they have these glycerin tears, and glycerin burns, and Greg didn't know this. And she's like, I need more tears. And he went up to her and he started punishing her. Yeah, she's like, fuck! And he's like, ah! So I wasn't there, so I didn't find out till later that she was so furious because he was burning her eyes. And he had no clue that he was burning her eyes. And the testament to that story, I guess, is that as tough as that was, is beyond all that, Parker still had a blast. She was so cool, and we were so jazzed to have her that even those weird moments kind of come and go. And you just try to make a marker of it and for the future, like, okay, so when we get someone like Parker, let's make sure they don't pay to be in it, and that we don't burn her eyeballs out at night, and we'll have a good shoot. So this, it's a learning process. There's a learning curve too.
Celluloid for celluloid. For celluloid. Yeah, we do lots of things for film, right?
Yeah, what was also great, Rick Linklater and Greg were really good friends already. So when we were filming Doom, there was a night when we were shooting the Carno Burger stuff with Nikki, and Renee Zellweger came by because she was dating Roy Cochran, and he was there, and it was like a bunch of the Dazed and Confused people came by, and we were just starstruck.
It was like all the cool kids.
All the cool kids were like, we can't believe there you are on our set. Like, go talk to him, you go talk to him, you go talk. Like, we were too shy to talk to him. But they were so kind of like very, very cool. And Nikki, he's still one of my weirdest favorite cameos. It's just so bizarre. Mitch, I'm a binder, I'm a killer. He's so dead. Those teeth. Can't get over it. And then Johanna went, yo, Bartholomew, what's up? That's Johanna Wynn. Like, my God, she's a legend, performance artist. It's mind blowing. you know, these cameos that he has with some of these actors and performance artists over there, like the earlier cameos from his earlier movies are wild. So you might not recognize them in the same way that you recognize the cameos from Doom or Nowhere, but if you know who these performance artists are from the 60s or 70s, and wild, wacky kind of cult actors like Eileen Warnock. And, I mean, it's like, there's some like, just some crazy, crazy stuff in there that's like definitely worth your time when it comes to the earlier movies.
You want to do a couple more trivias for Buttons?
Buttons.
Yeah.
So he's still got to sign some stuff, so we got to.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Rachel's awesome. In fact, when we do Nowhere, if you guys want us to come back, like I was saying this earlier, I'm pretty sure I get some of the actors to come with me.
Yeah, please and thank you.
But probably what we would do to help save money, to help bring more money to, you know, benefit is, and because we did this before, I'm sure, like I know Nathan Bexley, who plays Montgomery, we could all split in the same room. We just do it the way we did the
It'll
movie.
be like a high school sleepover.
Yeah.
Could we all partake in this?
Yeah. So what the cool thing about Rachel, like, so when we did Nowhere and then we went to Sundance, we had a Nowhere condo. And every actor.
A Nowhere condo?
A Nowhere, we called it the Nowhere condo. And it was all the actors, and we all stayed in one condo in Nowhere. Everyone from Rachel and Time Lewis all the way to myself and Kathleen Robinson and Nathan Bexley.
Why wasn't this made into a like a reality show?
You know, that would have been a good, you know, I think it's funny because at the time we weren't really, when we did know it, we were so jazzed about it, but I don't think like it had like.
We're all jazzed about it. What the fuck are you talking about it?
It was just, it was, you know, it was like, I think like the normal, at least in the 90s, the normal life of a Greg Rocky movies, we'd come out with a movie, and then like 2 or 3 years later, people would see it. It got to the point where some people would see it. So, you know, we're always making these little indie movies that we knew were for small audiences. If anything, it's like to come to a sold-out screening of this is mind-blowing. It really, truly is. Because it's like...
But you've been coming out to like numerous like sold-out screenings though.
Yeah.
Like ever since this has been like busted out in like the new 4K. Like you can't...
No one walked out, I don't think. So.
Well, maybe one or two.
Lauren, yeah, you walked out, it's okay.
I was like, maybe one or two.
Wouldn't be a Gregor Rocky movie without them.
Yeah, and literally, it would not be a Gregor Rocky movie without a walkout.
You got another trivia for a Button?
I do. Okay. These trivia questions are getting hard for me. Okay, come on, Blake, come up here and help me.
Yeah, you're really good at this. This is the person that you want on your trivia
No,
team.
why don't you go ask that, because I don't know. This is good. I don't know the answer.
Fuck, he doesn't even know the answer. Well, this is good. Go, girl, go.
What's the answer to that?
What were the colors of each character's lighter's flames? Oh. The flames are all different.
If you know the answer, then
You pick someone.
I think.
I feel like.
I think.
Right. I know. Maybe, what's one color? Facts. Give it.
Yeah.
Up in the corner?
Close. Do you know their names?
No.
The characters' names.
Xavier red.
Right?
But my understanding is that his flame color is white.
Oh.
Because of his
Shit, this gets deeper than
Yeah.
I thought it was. right. No, she gets a button though. Because
Yeah.
that's, you're right.
Yep.
I'm like, Greg, flames. What
Yes. Yeah, that's facts. Thank you. You got it.
Someone back there?
Blue.
Yep. Button over here. We need a button.
You got it. Yeah.
For all of you?
No.
It was me.
Act like I did this before.
Thanks. You know what?
Guys,
Thank you. That was amazing. I didn't even know that.
First time this evening.
I'm like, we have
One
flame
word.
colors?
How would you describe this?
Intense, fucked.
We heard
What else?
fucked, we heard intense.
Fucking awesome. That's 2 words, but we'll take it.
What'd you say, my man? Horny? Yeah,
Horny.
absolutely. Horny is for sure.
That's one of our favorites. So another one of our favorite reviews is when we were at Sundance, we were going into a party, and out of this elevator came like this, like they were dressed in ski gear, totally looked like people that would never watch our movie, right? And they get out of the elevator and they see us, we all had our eat, fuck, kill pins on. Like, hey, we just saw your movie. God, it made us had to go back to our hotel room and fuck. I swear to God, we're just like, that's still one of 3 reviews. He's just like, Dad, I think you watch
I've heard him
our movie,
repeat
go
that
and
one in a
fuck."
couple interviews.
I'm like, yeah, you did it, Greg.
That's probably the best review you could ever get.
That's
like,
what I
coming from
said.
this.
And they had buttons with like their full, like.
It's almost like the movie Society, right? Where you're just
It's just so, like, it's so out of place. But we love them for that. I still love them.
that validated your existence. Not your existence, but that validated you in that fucking movie, right?
It really, I'm, you know, and I will speak for Jonathan and Rose because they were standing with me. It validated. We all felt validated. Jonathan, Rose, and Greg and I were like 2 feet off the ground after that. See, somebody liked our movie. Because there were a lot of walkouts at Sundance. There were a lot of walkouts.
They walked out too. They just walked out to do other things.
Yeah, well, I mean, in all fairness, some walkouts when you're at that festival are because there's so many movies that are conflicting time-wise that people have to go for distribution or because they're working, so they can only watch a certain amount of movie, and then they have to go to the other movie that they're working on. So that does happen.
That is a big part of it.
That is a big part of it. But yeah, we did get walkouts too, just because it was really, it's you know, the film can be a bit extreme.
It's not everyone's cup of tea, that's
Yeah.
why. And that's why we live it here in the cinemas area.
Yes, it's exactly right.
You got another trivia?
I do. So this one's going to be tough, so I might have to make it. Like, if no one gets this, I'll just make it another question. But there's an actor from Totally Fucked Up who's in the beginning of Doom Generation. All right, that's too hard. All right, Greg is in Doom Generation. Do you know where Greg is?
No, it's Dustin
I
Nguyen.
didn't know that you could see him as clearly until this new 4K restoration.
God bless this 4K, right? I honestly didn't know what the bumper sticker said on the side of the car until tonight.
Yeah, we forgot about that until we saw the 4K
I was like, oh
restoration.
shit. Not only that, but like really, like kind of the layout of the dashboard. I couldn't really see everything that was like in there until this beautiful 4K restoration. I was like, oh, okay, like that, like weird, like little snake guy.
Is he in the
lots
mosh pit?
of cigarettes.
You got it. You
Oh,
got
what
it.
did he just say? What
He's
did
in
he
the
say?
mosh pit.
Yes.
So in the very beginning,
Yes.
because I remember, you could see Greg clearly coming. Just grab you.
Yep. Do you know who else also has like a little bitty bit in the beginning? And I'm such a huge fan. Skinny Puppy.
Yes.
Fucking Skinny Puppy.
Skinny Puppy, all three. It's Ogre and Dave and Dwayne.
Yeah. So they
And
totally
Ogre's the one who has the
toss,
line, right?
Like Jonathan, they're the ones that like throw Jonathan up on the
Yeah, Dwayne Coachella, mimic
like, yes, man. Like I love Skinny Puppy so much. There's I don't. Oh, what did you just get? What did you just get? You're like, I don't know.
So we still have. So I'm going to thank this wonderful fan.
Oh yeah.
There's still 2 buttons left, but he's getting a button.
He's getting a button. There also, I don't know if you guys also saw, like, so Perry Farrell is also in this. We obviously always just spoke of Parker Posey.
I just ran into Perry at the Crew World Festival
Are you-
like 3 weeks ago. You had to remind him of Doom Generation. He remembers.
How do you have to remind him?
Well, he
of
remembers
Doom
he
Generation?
did it. He just doesn't remember it. So he was kind of like, I saw him, you know, because David J. from Love and Rockets, and I've been working with him and doing some stuff with him recently in the past. And I was his guest as well as Boy Harshers. And when I went to
I
go
wanted
meet.
to ask you about that.
Yeah, we could talk about that too. So when I went to go meet David, I saw Perry, and I hadn't seen Perry since 2004. And it was when I saw him in 2004, it was the same thing. His girlfriend's like, "Hey, it's James from Doom Generation." He's like, "Oh, I remember that."
Is that how you get like introduced? It's James from Doom Generation. Is that how you get
It depends. It can range, but that's how his girlfriend introduced me. It's like, "Don't you remember him, Perry?" And he was like, "Yeah." Clearly not. And it was a similar thing. This time, at least, he went up to me. He's like, "Oh, it's the good-looking guy." I'm like, "Oh, yes." And then he was just like, "So how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good. You don't remember we did Doom Generation?" But he's like, "Doom Generation, yeah. You're in that?" I'm like, "Yeah, we were in it together." He's like, "Oh, that's great. That's great. So, like, what are you doing now?" I'm like, just
acting.
Yeah, still acting, doing other things. If anything, Perry was a bit more coherent this time around than he was 15 years ago.
Fair.
Yeah, he wasn't out of it. It's just Perry's definitely in Perry's world.
More in his prime now. Than 15 years ago, where like he can't even remember his lines, possibly.
Well, you know, so I'm glad he's like, "That'll be 66. And I think, you know, it was it's the Heidi Fleiss one that you saw. So right
that
before
was somebody else that's fucking in it.
Yeah, one before we filmed that scene, I go up like, "Would you like to meet Heidi Fleiss, the Hollywood Madam?" I'm like, "Why not?" So I go up to her trailer, and she's in that blue. She was in the same blue. That was just her blue robe. She's shot like that, and she's opens the door. It's like, "Oh, this is James playing Jordan." She's like, "I'm on 5 volumes right now."
I'm on 5 volumes, and I just sold 5 men
Yeah.
to 5 really wealthy women.
It's just
So,
like,
that's cool.
yeah, it was wild. And she could barely talk. And we're just like, "Hey, we got the lines out. She's wrapped. We're good to go. We just move on. And then we can just put that behind us."
Oh, the joys of independent filmmaking.
I mean, the people that we get to meet. I'm still a fan. I'm quite a fan of, I gotta say, Christopher Knight, Peter Brady. He was very cool.
Oh man.
He was very, very cool.
What a rando little cameo.
Just him and Lauren Tewes, from The Love Boat as the other newscaster. So she was like, "So what happened? Why did the movie get delayed? Like, why would we stop for 2 weeks?" And we're like, "Well, because we cast Cheryl Ladd and Jordan, Cheryl Ladd, Charlie's Angels, Lauren Tewes, Love Boat. They're all from the same." And I can say this with confidence because Greg's told us at one of the last ones. So she's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? She wouldn't let her fucking daughter do this? She's the biggest fucking coke whore ever." I mean, well, that's a little bit of Hollywood gossip. 70s, 80s for you, right?
Isn't there the not special thanks for her too in the credits?
There's a no special thanks to Cheryl Ladd. Although I will say now, everything's gone full circle. Cheryl Ladd and Greg are cool now. Jordan, everything's forgiven. In that sense, it's like her mom had to explain to Jordan why Rose was on the cover of Interview magazine, like I was saying earlier, and many other ones. And it really, Doom did a lot for Rose, and it hurt Jordan. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, Jordan did. She did do Nowhere. But she would have been, it hurt her not to lose the lead role, I think, a little bit in that sense. Ultimately, it's good that I think everyone's doing well now. Jordan's doing well, Rose is doing well, so it's odd the way things work out in Hollywood. Still 2 pins. Yeah. I like to think of it like a wave. It's like a circle. Everything always comes back full circle, always. The good and the bad. Let's think of a couple of good trivia questions for you all. What's the name of the Cocteau Twins song in Doom Generation? It's not on an album, so that's a good one. That's why we use this. Sometimes someone gets this and sometimes someone doesn't. But it's one of my favorite Cocteau Twins songs ever. Someone right? No, that's close. Because the character says, "I partly do drops," which is a Cocteau Twins song. But the song in the movie,
Way in the back, maybe?
Summer Blink?
That's it. It's Summer Blink. Yeah, I just love that song. Everyone's like, okay, get to the next question. Thank you. Great answer.
More trivia.
Last pin. Last pin. All right. Blake,
No.
come on, pick another one. Oh no, that's all right, that's an easy one, but you know, whoever gets their hand up first, I'll find out how that works. All right, you come ask this, because it's going to sound crazy if I ask this.
What band shirt is Jordan wearing the first time you see him?
It's easy.
Me? Ministry.
God, that's the last pin. Everyone give big round of applause.
I was like,